So, firstly, thank you for taking time to have this interview with me. I did watch the podcast that you did with, I think, the student podcast.
Student podcast.
Yeah, it was an informative episode that you had with the guys. And what I also picked up is that you have an issue of not living up to commitments when it comes to such things. So I appreciate you being here.
Shout out.
So my first question would be just for you to give me a background on the issues at Unibell. What was the starting point? At what point did you guys realize that this is an issue that we're having with this particular system of residences?
Yeah, sure. So I think should I say the primary reason why the situation escalated the way that it did was because of the ignorance of delivering on basic maintenance work for the past 4 years. So that in and of itself, and as a result, then speared what you saw. It started, or let me put it like this, the demonstration actually started this year, but the problem started at the inception of Unibell. When Unibell started, when it opened its gates, and students started residing there. I remember at the time I was a house committee in 2023. We were the first house committees of Unibell 2, and the building already had defects by month 6, you know. Tiles were falling off, the hoses were not working, water pressure was a problem. So it had a lot of teething problems, I must say. And, we raised these issues constantly and consistently each and every year. But I think there was just something special about this year. There was a there was a certain level of relentlessness, There was a certain level of grit and determination to really see through everything. I think one of the and I call it a very tactical move that the university does is to accept memorandums, making you think that they've acknowledged them and they want to execute on them. An acknowledgement of a memorandum is not the execution of what we demand, right? So we were leaning towards the execution. And whilst they were attending to our memorandum and fixing things, we want things to be fixed fully. And I think the timing of it really was also as important because it was during exams. There are two events in a university that are very prestigious: exams and graduation. Very, very, very important, very prestigious. So if you target either one of those sessions, you're bound to get the attention. And I don't think the students did it because they wanted to, but really, if you were thinking about it tactically, it was going to be more impactful during these times. And it was also a risk. I mean, I don't recall exams being disrupted. So that's where all of the issues started. They stem way back 4 years ago, but they reached their boiling point in 2026 on the 18th of May. Wow.
You've served as SRC. SASCA has served as SRC for 2 years, 2 terms. And within these 2 terms, and I acknowledge that you say this year things were a bit different in terms of this relentlessness to see things through. But like you said, these issues existed from the inception of Unibell. I used to stage Unibell 1, so I know the very first protest that took place.
Exactly.
So I know of the issues, and because the following year I went again to stage Unibell 3, and we still had the same issues we had in Unibell 1. One would ask that why did we have to wait until now to have these demonstrations? Why did we have to act so late, given that these issues have been ongoing for, I think, the past 3-4 years now?
You see, this is the thing about capitalism. It drives as its primary motive profit. It drives the interest of the entity and not the person. It seeks to minimize costs, maximize profits and efficiency. And I think this was a display of it is a display of the Unibell project. The Unibell project is one example of it. I'll tell you why. If we have the Unibell project was about 975 million, close to R1 billion. Just the procurement and the development costs of all of that.
Yeah.
And not over year 5, you have average costs of maintenance ranging at about 8 million. That is more than the average cost of the maintenance of all residences in UWC that are over 25 years. And in all of that, it makes no logical sense to me. There's no consistent flow in my mind that convinces me that 975 million could buy you such poor quality.
Yeah.
From the walls to talk about the windows, talk about the laundry facilities, the washers, the dryers, if you talk about the Wi-Fi connectivity, the mold, everything, every material, the stoves, they're not durable. And I can't convince and bring myself that 975 million was the cost of Unibell. I can't convince myself that it really is the case that we find ourselves here. And I think this is going back to your question, which was, just remind me, which was
why did we have
2 years to take years? It is because the system of capital and this institution is ripe. It's ripe, and it's now masked itself in executive positions. So they're perpetuating that. It's that system of capital that we as student leaders must not, at any particular point in time, allow. We must not ever agree to it, because us succumbing to the system of capital is us just agreeing, perpetuating, and just increasing the struggles of the black student. So I think really that's why it took so much for us to be here.
Yeah.
It took a lot of effort, it took a lot of timing too. I'll always go back to timing.
Yeah.
That the timing in and of itself was also a very good time. If you think about the portfolio committee of Parliament coming to visit the institution, the oversight visit by the minister. So these were all very ideal times in what we were progressing as the students of the university, more particularly the students of Unibell. It was the balance of forces were in our favor.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why we were more impactful. I don't know, I always say that being impactful does not need you to have 400 or 9,000 students in a protest. You could have that during the registration period. They'll see you just walking by and just leave you, because everyone demonstrates during the registration period. But to do it during the exam, closer to exams, parliamentary portfolio committee is coming, minister is here. The balance of forces, you must always be able to rate them, because they will always assist you to be impactful in what you have to do.
I hear you. So in the podcast, you mentioned that this demonstration happened as a last resort. We didn't want to get to this point. So what other measures have you guys taken as the SRC, receiving all of these reports about Unibell from the first term until we got to this boiling point?
Well, if we look at it from a student perspective, I think we've delivered so many memorandums to the executive, I've even lost count. We delivered a memorandum even during my term of office as a House Committee member. This is why I don't believe in memorandums. I don't believe in the acknowledgement. I just believe memorandums as an event wherein the frustrations of students are escalated to a point of understanding to the executive. You see, that's why we need to deliver memorandums of demands. It's a very systemic way to, take up issues within the relevant structures where the decision making can happen. So, just to go back to your question, it's very important, I think, to understand that in wherever we find ourselves in, these memorandums that we are delivering, there's a perspective of the student on what you can do, right? As this is why you asked me the question, what did the SRC do? From a student-related perspective, that's what we did. From a governance-related perspective, I remember we've asked, and by we I mean all SRC terms dating as far back as 2019. We asked for maintenance reports from IBDC, which is Infrastructure and Business Development Committee, University Council. The maintenance report was requested as far back as 2023, and it only served now. Because I'll tell you why. There are so many secrets. There are so many revelations that one can stumble upon once we dive deeper into the issue of maintenance. And I think three things will happen in the not so distant future. One, someone will get suspended from the university pending an investigation. The university will commission an independent structural inspection or assess of Unibell. And three, I do solemnly believe that we might have, and God forbid, a very unwanted situation of facilities just falling down in the middle of nowhere. Facilities, being the cause of a sickness, and UWC should really be like, it is, in fact, it should be grateful, and it is lucky that there's no student who's reported being infected by TB, pneumonia, and all of these things, because as a result of the conditions and the facilities that are at Unibell, which are not adequately maintained. So I think those three things can happen. But these are some of the things we've done at a governance level. They've served now. They are on the light. The maintenance now is a priority for the university. I remember a time where acquiring buildings was more of a priority than maintaining. However, what good is it to acquire more facilities and infrastructure without a corresponding maintenance plan for these buildings as they age and depreciate?
So I also happened to watch the whole 6 hours of the portfolio committee. And it stood out that while the demonstrations were mainly about the maintenance issues around Unibell, there were also quite a lot of disturbing factors that sort of added to the whole pressure point at the time. The issue of staff members, payments, and stuff like that. You personally also mentioned the issue of the SRC not receiving a budget, however expected to represent the university in some events or structures. So just to shed light into some of those issues that also surround or sort of add into this ball of fire that we then experienced.
So I'm trying to understand the question.
So I just need you to list for me, on top of the issue of maintenance, what else is going on within the university that needs
I get you. I think the state of affairs of the university are very complex and they're very overwhelming. There's so many that's going on in this university that if you begin to really study just one of them, it will overwhelm the mind out of you. And this is cognizant of so many issues that are occurring. Maintenance is one of them. The misalignment of roles and responsibilities within the executive structure, where accommodation is approved by finance and operations, but not student development and support. Whether you would like to think about the issues pertaining to the exclusion of Black accommodation developers, whether you would like to think about issues surrounding transport in UWC, which puts students at a great disadvantage, where the market is now opening up to service to taxi bosses, and taxi providers that are in your local communities. Now they're transporting our students here. It's really unsafe for me for a university to operate like that. It shouldn't operate like that. A university should have a framework for transport. On how are we going to ensure that we pick up students from leased properties to here without having to get into very dangerous deals with taxi providers and shall I say unconsciously, or for lack of a better word, or unintentionally open up the market towards taxi providers. Whether you would like to think about issues pertaining to the defunding of NSFAS students, and especially with what's happening at NSFAS, with there being a new administrator, and that brings it with itself some complexity and some uncertainty. So there's just so many issues that I could call up around the state of affairs of the university that it is impossible for you as a student leader to want to fight all of them. I always say pick your battles, and pick a battle that's most impactful and one that holds dear to your own heart and your collective heart. Hence, that's why I think we're very firm around the issue of accommodation, the procurement of accommodation. We're very firm around the issue of transport. We're very firm around the holding the executive lines accountable. And these are things that are disadvantaging students if people don't know. Indirectly, there's a great disadvantage, because if you are a student that's not funded by NSFAS, and unfortunately you can't pay for your own accommodation, but you need accommodation because you are from the outskirts of you're from the outskirts of another province. You need accommodation immediately so that you can be able to prepare yourself for what would be then the new academic year, right? But if you cannot do that, and worse, if someone from the university who's an official cannot assist you because the misalignment of the role is at a department that is very, very oppressive and very anti-student and very anti-poor student. If those lines of student welfare, we say that they lie within the DVC SDS, but yet the one that's actually driving this welfare is at operations, becomes very difficult. It disadvantages the Black student. I'm telling you, if financial aid office was to move and go to finance, because financial aid is under SDS, if it would move and go to finance, it would be the death of a Black student. So I think these are just some of the state of affairs of the university at a very, very complex, very high level of what's going on beyond, the issues of NSFAS, the issues of safety and security and all that. All of these, operational issues are really influenced greatly by all of the strategic challenges that I'm mentioning to you about this university.
And I need you to paint this picture for me. So in terms of the decisions that the university then takes on behalf of the student, who are they meant to consult? So I'm asking in terms of, for example, acquiring of residences, maintenance of residences, the transport issues that you mentioned. I stay at Simonsburg. Last year we were using HGTS. Now we're using Golden Arrows. The sudden change of
You mean RLH?
Oh yes,
RLH.
yes.
I even said that in some interviews. It's not golden anymore.
Well, we get those gold cards, so I just assume.
Sure.
But yeah, so the sudden change of shuttle schedules, because with us now, you just get a message on the WhatsApp group that as of 5 p.m. there are no shuttles after 6, and one has to ask that, okay, you've made this decision as a university for me, but who are you consulting? Who is speaking on my behalf? Who are they meant to consult, and who are they actually consulting? So just paint the picture between the two, that this is what is meant to happen, but this is what is happening right now.
Well, there are situations where the university gets consultation right, and I won't blame them all the time or criticize them. But there are certain situations where they do not get it right. I'll give you an example about the transport issue. There was a time in the beginning of the year when we were still finalizing the issue of the shuttle schedules and all that, and students raised concerns about the shuttle schedule. It's not finalized, but the academic year started. So before the university finalized that schedule, or in their process, they called student leaders, showed them the shuttle schedule, explained to them the framework in which they operate, the budget and all of that. And there were very robust discussions about how do we reprioritize shuttles elsewhere. If there are 14 shuttles at HPR, but only of the 14 throughout the day, we have like 6 buses just carrying 2-3 people. That's not efficient. Whereas at Solaris or at Simonsburg, there is that demand because it's like over 400 students, and you can see that the bus is so full. Why don't we find a way to reprioritize our budgets and all of that? So there was that discussion up until we came up with the final verdict. And that shuttle schedule was implemented. And there were no major concerns around that shuttle schedule other than the fact that, of course, we need a Saturday shuttle. And one of the things which were proposed there was that if you need a Saturday shuttle, rather choose a shuttle that you can reprioritize elsewhere. Like if you say the Friday 6 o'clock, rather take it to Saturday. So that's what, as a collective, the university and together with the student leaders or management too, we collectively decided, which worked. And then after the disruption of exams, shuttles were just discarded abruptly without consulting students. So do you see where they get it right? First, so if you were to discard shuttles, the same way you introduced those shuttles, the same method is the same method you should use to find out if discarding them is necessary. So it was only after we wrote several emails about our concerns that they call us into the table. So I think we need to understand the impact of consultation before and consultation after. Consultation before is far more effective than consulting after you've taken a decision and made it public, and now it's affecting students.
I think that also then brings me to this big concern now that we sort of have as students, the decisions or the consequences, as I call them, of these demonstrations that happened. The cancelling of examinations, the extension of the recess period or the shifting of the recess period, extension of the academic year up until the 23rd of December. Would you shed light on how you think those decisions came about and whether you think they are for the students or they just... Because to someone who is not as informed as they should be in this issue. It almost seems as if we're being punished for demonstrating, but I just need you to sort of inform me on how this resolution came about, and whether there could have been an alternative way that would have been more favorable for the students. Yeah.
So the principle was, how do we ensure that we protect the academic project and ensure that there's still fairness around it? You might not like what I'm about to say, but that timetable for me was the most realistic, practical schedule out of the options that one had. And I think, look, the timetable in and of itself, in its composition, was never going to be designed to serve everyone.
Yeah.
I think all of us as stakeholders were going to take a knock, especially if you look at even admin staff. I mean, now they're not going home. Academics have like 3 days to mark hundreds and hundreds of scripts. They need to capture those marks, subs, and all of those things. So there are sacrifices that all of us had to make. And I think when I headed into those engagements, because first there was a consultation with the SRC, we raised our views. There were 2 options. The first option, just to break it down for you, exams were going to start somewhere around month end July, and second or third term round about month end August, but the academic year was going to end in 2027 January. What are the implications of that? Firstly, NSFAS only pays for, is it 10 or
10 months?
It pays for, no, it's actually 11. It's 10 years. It pays for 10 months, from February until October. And
Till November.
Yes, apologies, from February till November. Beyond November, there would still be students, not those writing subs. I'm talking about students who are still writing exams that are expected to be on campus. And how are they going to survive? And the NSFAS student won't survive. Secondly, there are students who want to use their transcripts and results to apply for internships, employment opportunities and all that, but yet your results are not out. They'll only be out in January 2027. And it was going to be administratively burdensome to also academics, because their December holidays would have been horrible.
Yeah.
The second option mitigated that. But the greatest sacrifice I think that we had to endure as students is to cut our holidays short.
Yeah.
They were significantly cut. I mean, but if you look at the picture, and I see students, I hear students saying, we're going to be here in December. The only reason why you're going to be here in December is because you're writing a supplementary exam.
Yeah.
Okay. But exams actually end on the 2nd of December, if not the 1st. In fact, most students would have been done before even December.
Yeah.
It's going to be certain modules where you write on the 1st and on the 2nd. So I do think that then we took it to Senate. Then Senate, it was then approved, with some considerations that, okay, initially exams were going to start on the 10th, but UWC has a physics conference for a year, so they pushed it to the 13th to the 22nd, but they managed to really incorporate everything to allow us to finish within the 2026 academic year. And I think that's some responsibility that we have as leaders sometimes. Sometimes, yes, it's important to hold the institution accountable, but there comes a time where you also need to be part of the solution.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't want to be on that part, because you tend to take very centered decisions, and decisions that don't just rely on the interest of just the student, but it's also about ensuring that the university, because the university is us.
Yeah.
It is us. So how do we ensure that with all of these factors and these considerations, how do we come with the best alternative? And I think that really students were considered for in the best way that we could. I mean, people were saying that, no, use our CAMs or let's write multiple choice. But remember, an exam has a quality assurance standard. So these assessments, the Council of Higher Education governs things such as quality assurance, assessments, exams. There needs to be a level of integrity around the assessment, so that when you are promoted to the following year, there are no questions about your progression.
Yeah.
So you can't just say, Cam, let's do that. No, it can't, unfortunately. And we can't, as student leaders, not embrace and push our students' intellectual capacity to be able to perform at an exam. That's what we should believe in as student leaders. That's academic excellence. We can't just want the convenient way out all of the time.
So for those students who will unfortunately have to remain for supplementary exams during that December period, there are those who stay in private accommodations. And we know the issue of landlords. Is there anything being discussed for them at the moment?
So landlords, that's why I said, so it would be students who are writing a supplementary, because landlords only require you to vacate at the end of the month, November, because NSFAS pays for November. So if there are students who fall outside November, maybe they need 2 days, or are going to be writing an exam on the 2nd, or are writing supplementary exams, it's not going to be a great number. I know that for sure. And there's always been interventions in place for those kinds of students, whether we ask landlords to extend their stay because of reasons that the university can prove. The university has done that. We have done that as student leaders on so many occasions. So we are well prepared for that, and I don't think that students must panic.
So I want to touch on now your role as Deputy President at the South African Union of Students. In that position, or in a broader sense, what issues are you is that union recognizing in terms of similarities of issues within different institutions? So what battles are we fighting here that other university students are fighting?
Okay. I'm skeptical of speaking on the union without being delegated or deployed to speak on the views of the union, but I definitely can give you, based on that question, there's no harm in it. So the South African Union of Students, it's a student union that governs all 26 SRCs in the country. So all 26 SRCs come after 3 years. They elect a national executive committee consisting of the president, deputy president, there's now a first DSG, second DSG, the secretary general, TG, and 19 other officials, or 19 other NEC members. And SAUS is, you would like to think of it as the SRC of all SRCs. It focuses more on policy matters that governs the sector. We would like to think about the white paper on higher education, the Higher Education Act, the NSFAS Act, DHET, minimum norms and standards. See, these policies affect institutions in the way they operate. SAUS is a great contribution towards the drafting of those policies, and also representing and advocating for the well-being of the students in all spheres of society in a university setting. So it represents all university students. So that's what we do as SAUS, and it really plays a very pivotal role because it consolidates the voices and the aspirations of quite a large cohort of students, and it ensures that those aspirations are translated at policy. Those aspirations are translated towards policy, which will allow the lived realities of students to change. Whether you would like to think about NSFAS now being a bursary instead of a loan back in the day, pre-fees must fall era. These are contributions, from SAUS at a policy level. I know currently we're working on increasing the meal allowance. Every time there's funding guidelines of NSFAS release, SAUS makes inputs and submissions before the minister approves the funding guidelines and releases them. So these are just some of the ways SAWS plays a pivotal role and what it exists for.
And so I hear that you don't want to touch much on the work that the union does, but I sort of want to get a picture of, even if it's not necessarily from the point of view of SAWS, but just a picture of the issue in the tertiary sector, because we're not the only university facing these issues. And I say that because during these demonstrations, students were posting on TikTok, students were posting on social media, and the comment sections were filled with students saying, in our universities, we also face the same issue. We also have issues of maintenance. We also stay in residences that are not conducive for us, So to me, that signals that there's a broader issue within institutions. It's not just a UWC issue anymore, as much as UWC is responsible for the issues that happen here, but there's also a broader issue within multiple universities. So what are those issues that we're looking at now, or these issues that we're facing now? What are they a product of at a sector, at a level of the tertiary sector in its entirety?
There's quite a lot of issues that the sector faces, and what are they a product of? I mean, let's take an example. Maintenance issues, accommodation issues are all as a result of not having a centralized system of accrediting accommodation. The university can accredit its own accommodation without NSFAS accrediting it, but that's about to change. The sector is reforming in that regard. All accommodations that an institution enters into leases with must be accredited by NSFAS. I mean, the reason why we have issues of the wins because they are not accredited by even NSFAS. You see, so they're a product of not having a centralized system of accrediting. I think NSFAS must play a great role in accrediting accommodations. The issues that we have around, let's say, transport, are because the transport framework, even at NSFAS, is not centralized. Sometimes decentralization becomes very problematic at times. It bears these issues. The reason why some universities can't even change their culture, like if you think about, they always say they've reformed, but I am not seeing anything. Stellenbosch, these are as a result of their statutes, which, by the way, are approved by DHET. The institutional autonomy that some universities have, they do it through their statute. I kid you not. They do it through their statute. A statute is like, if you think about the Constitution of South Africa, it's like the Constitution of a university. You see? So these are just some of the issues, and what are they the byproduct of? Even the minimum norms and standards for accommodation. We have issues around people misinterpreting the norms and standards, and DHET is the one that sets these norms and standards. So it's also about what is DHET's role in terms of oversight, which I don't think it has gotten right yet. How do we ensure that there's oversight over our own policies and ensure that providers and universities that enter into agreements with these providers align with what DHET wants? So I think that the issue of, in that regard, stems with DHET just not having oversight. So sometimes really, I think that government must have a closer hand. It must be more hands-on into universities. I'm not a proponent of institutional autonomy. I don't believe in that. I do not. I do believe universities do have some certain degree of academic freedom to decide who they teach, what they teach, and why they teach it. I believe that. But I don't think universities must be in a position where now they lead themselves. Because if that happens, I fear that students will be disadvantaged heavily.
Yeah. Students are taking a break. Just to bring it back to UWC now. Students are taking a break after the completion of the examinations. We're coming back on the 19th as announced. What are we expecting to see as students when we're back on the issues that were raised during demonstrations? And by expecting, I use expecting lightly or loosely rather, knowing that it doesn't necessarily fall within your scope, but also what are you as the SRC hoping to see that in this huge break now that we're taking, the university starts doing. So maintenance issues that we have spoken about, amongst the other issues of staff members, the issues of the SRC budget, the transportation issues. What changes should we expect to see when we come back to the institution?
Well, I think largely it's, of course, the reason why we're here is because we disrupted exams as a result of maintenance issues. I think primarily we do expect all maintenance issues at Unibell to be resolved. So all of them, washers, dryers, Wi-Fi connectivity, mold, mattresses that are not in good condition, the water pressure, every bit of maintenance defect must be resolved by the time that students are expected to come write their exams. So I don't think any student deserves to live in an environment that does not allow them to succeed. And that's what I think we largely expect, really. All other things, we just continue with our plan of action. We continue with what we envision. We continue with our execution. We just need to adjust our programs to the new dates. But when we open, the first pertinent point to address is the maintenance. And I think we're working well in the maintenance task team. It's a special task team convened by the Vice Chancellor. So there's progress there. And I think when students come back, there'll be great progress. I mean, there's already progress there.
No, thank you very much. I think